I'm going to go ahead and create a new message. We won't worry about any of this other stuff up here at the top, but what I do want to show you is just some formatting things that we can do with text inside of the body. One of the things that's really nice about Outlook is that when you send a message, it can contain more than, just the plain text. So let's say, "Dear Mom, thanks for the cookies. They were great. Love, Ken." Okay, now that's great all by itself, but that's basically just standard text. Outlook lets us kind of dress things up, and we're actually going to be getting into a lot of this later on, but something that you can do inside of a message is bring emphasis to words, just like we would with, for example, Microsoft Word. You can make things bold, you can change the font, you can italicize them, you can make the font larger. All the basic formatting that you can do inside of a word processor, you can do inside of Outlook. And since that's done very commonly, they have put that information right here on the ribbon in the basic text panel. The way it works, just in case you're not familiar with word processors, is any changes that you make without text selected will affect new text that you type. But if you select text first, text that you've already typed, and then you make a change, that change will affect the selected text. So if I wanted to change the font, for example, this is the font name. Click the drop down, and let's do Bodoni. Okay, so I changed the font. I'll go ahead and select a different one. Cooper Black. Looks a little bit more personal and friendly. If I wanted to change the size, a couple of things I can do. I can click the drop down and specify a size. Notice if you hover over something, you get a preview of what it's going to look like, if you actually select that option. So let's go ahead and do 26. And incidentally, that value is given in what's called points. And points is basically the way computers deal with size on the screen. But there's another way that I can change the size. I can increase the font size by clicking this big A with the little triangle pointing up. And I can decrease it by clicking the littler a with the triangle pointing down. So a couple of different things we can do with that. If you wanted to make some text bold, select it and hit this B right here. That bolds it. And if you wanted to italicize something, notice I am clicking and dragging to select text, and then I click an attribute. Now with these attributes up here, these are like toggle switches, so they're like on and off switches. The I is highlighted right now. That's because I have that applied to this particular word. If I select somewhere else, the I is not highlighted anymore. If I click inside the word cookies, remember we bolded that. The B gets highlighted because that just lets me know that the bold attribute has already been applied here. Now I mentioned that if you make a change without text selected, let's go ahead and just scroll down here, that it will affect future text that you're typing. So let's go ahead and do a different font. We'll do Bradley Hand. Nothing changed on the screen, right? But if I start typing, this is my new font. Okay, that's because I made a change prior to having text selected, and then that change is applied to any new text that I type. Now, we can also change things like color. Click the little drop down. Let's go to red, because love is supposed to be red, right? And maybe I wanted to write some kind of poem, and poems look better centered. So let's select all of this text. Here are our justification options. Left justify puts everything on the left. Right justify puts everything on the right. And then center will align everything in the center. And of course, if that was a poem, it would look lovely, but it's not a poem. So let's put it back on the left. And let's look at just a couple of more things. With all of these different lines selected, I can make these bulleted. Okay, so I get a bullet for each new line. And if I went down to the last one and I hit the enter key, I automatically am going to get a new bullet like this. If I want the bullet, I can type a new line. And then if I hit enter, I'll continue to get those bullets. If I don't want the bullets anymore, I can hit the backspace key and get rid of it. Now, in addition to bullets, let's click and drag and select all of this. Let's turn bulleting off and let's do numbering. Basically works the same way. You get automatically numbered lines. And if I was to go in here and delete, let's delete Ken. Then notice my numbering automatically gets updated, the sequence there. So this is a little bit more than just numbers getting inserted there. Outlook's actually keeping track of things. And if you use Word and you're familiar with Word, then you already know how all this works. It works exactly the same way. Should you want to get rid of all the formatting in the document, click and drag. We've selected everything, and I'm going to click this option right here, Clear Formatting. And that gets rid of the font, that gets rid of the size changes. Everything that we did is now gone. Now, before we move on, I want to mention one thing to you. Some people don't like to get, messages that are all dolled up with lots of different attributes. And they might actually only be able to receive what's called plain text. That looks basically like this. Let me show you here. Go all the way to Courier. Right, like that right there. And it won't even have different sizes. It'll look just like that. Inside of Outlook, we can actually specify how we send our messages, whether it's going to be HTML and have pictures in it and all that kind of stuff, or if maybe we're on a dial-up account and we don't want to send a lot of information, we just want to send the message itself, we can change that on the Options tab where it says Format. We can do plain text. And if we do that, Outlook's going to let us know that all of our formatting is going to be lost. That's okay. We'll click Continue. And this is what a plain text email looks like. Notice my signature got tossed. Any of the changes that I made to the fonts, all that gets tossed. We can also do HTML and rich text. HTML and rich text are very similar, but rich text is generally compatible only with another Outlook or Exchange client. So you probably don't want to use this option because chances are people that you might be sending to, they might not be using Outlook. So the safest rule of thumb is HTML. Just about any email client can read that. And if like I said, if you're on dial-up or something, or you just want to make sure that your email does get through, because a lot of spam filters, if there's HTML, sometimes they just say, okay, that means it's spam because there's HTML code in it. If you want to make sure that your message gets through, then do a plain text message. And I'm going to have to hit this again. And then you won't be able to do anything like bold it, for example. If I go back to message, notice all of these options are grayed out. So with a plain text message like this, there is no formatting that you can do. You're sending just the text itself. But for me, that's kind of boring. So let's go back to HTML. And up next, I'm going to show you how to insert pictures into your emails.